You will remove these restraints and leave this cell with the door open.
I will remove these restraints and leave the cell with the door open.
How do I even begin to explain Regina George? I hear she does car commercials in Japan. One time, she punched me in the face. It was awesome. I just feel like women got ambition and they've got talent as well as just beauty.
Megara. My friends call me Meg. At least they would if I had any friends.
Get off of me! As if!
You got into Harvard Law?
What, like it's hard?
Yeah, she's not like a fighter. She's not a fighter, but she lives alone on a desert planet. So, yeah, she can look after herself.
She knows how to take care of
Yeah.
Picture this. It is 2015 and you are going to the movies. The movie landscape has changed somewhat since the last time a new Star Wars trilogy was starting. The biggest difference is that this is no longer the biggest sci-fi fantasy franchise you can go see. The prequels, likely combined with the effect of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, have led to more franchises than ever before. And you get to have your pick of stories, a new take on an old IP that makes it more realistic, where the ladies may have a bit more to do than before. Maybe not a lot better than other installments, but there are a number of female-led stories based on popular books you can check out. And of course, there are a bunch of comic book movies that are always fun to watch, though it is a crapshoot on how many ladies will get to do anything in them. But the biggest change is that George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney. And what you've been hearing definitely sets this new movie apart from the prequels. We're back to practical sets and effects, back to starting in a desert and blowing up the big weapon thing. But more than that has changed. And today, we're going to talk about it. Anyway, hello! On this channel, we talk about ladies, and this series is going to be all about exploring the way female characters have been treated over the decades by this franchise. Now, I am extremely aware of what the online presence for these movies has been like.
Keep away from the sinking fields in the north, you'll drown in the sand.
And let me just be clear, I'm going to be talking about how this movie develops Rey as a person, her character arc, and her impact overall. And if you have the sort of brainworms where you dislike this movie because a girl has the Force, so you didn't feel represented, then don't worry your silly little head any further. I know exactly where you appear in the film, and I think you do too.
That's mine!
For the rest of you who actually liked Rey in this movie and aren't hate watching this for some reason, let's get started.
Actually, the droids are not for sale.
Alright, to kick things off, let's discuss what this movie is about. Just like how The Phantom Menace's plot revolves around Padme, this movie is about Rey.
Follow the girl.
What girl?
Who's the girl?
The girl I've heard so much about.
Don't tell me about the girl.
But the girl was all we needed.
However, unlike Padme and Leia, or even Luke and Anakin, the plot is not built around her actions, but rather built to help us understand who she is as a person. She is the mystery that needs to be unboxed, if you will.
I'm just a scavenger.
Where's the pilot?
I'm the pilot. I'm not giving you anything.
So this section is going to have 3 parts, as there are sort of 3 versions of Rey we come to understand. There's the past, Rey the Scavenger, largely defined by her introductory scene and her interactions with BB-8. Then there is Rey helping the Resistance, brought along by Finn. And finally, we have Rey the Jedi-to-be, established mainly by her interactions with Kylo Ren.
I think I can handle myself.
First, who Who is Rey the Scavenger? We start off with Rey wearing a mask, instilling the idea that she is a mystery to be solved. Then the entire next scene has almost no dialogue. We must just observe her to learn about her. And what do we learn? Well, first, that she is physically very capable and scrappy. We learn that she idolizes pilots and likes to imagine herself flying away from Jakku. But in contrast to another desert dweller, it's not an adventure that she's waiting for. In order for us to learn more about that, she needs someone to talk to. She rescues him, immediately establishing another very important thing about Rey. She is compassionate and willing to risk her own safety to help someone else. Exemplified here by these parallel scenes.
1/4 portion. 1/2 portion.
Last week they were a half portion each.
And through BB-8, we also learn that she is waiting for her parents, and that she has been waiting for a very long time.
I know all about waiting. They'll be back. One day.
This establishes Rey as a deeply flawed person in a way we have rarely seen in Star Wars before. She has not changed anything about herself in at least, 15 years, because she is awaiting something that will never happen. This means that we are rooting for her to move past this idea and accept that there can be no happy story for her in this desert.
Don't give up hope. He still might show up, whoever it is you're waiting for.
So overall, Rey the Scavenger is a capable fighter, a resourceful person, bothered by injustice, and willing to put her neck out to help others. She is also a deeply lonely person who has been waiting for anyone to care about her. Now along comes another character who was introduced in a mask. These moments are cut together.
Actually, the droids are not for sale.
What? This is a rescue. I'm helping you escape.
Showing how these characters are both pitching in to help the mission continue, but they both have reservations with helping.
Because it's the right thing to do. You need a pilot. I need a pilot.
While Rey has no intention of letting it disrupt her waiting, these hang-ups lead to the partnership being successful if they are in sync.
I can do this. I can do this.
I can do this. I can do this.
But bad things happen when they are not.
Yes, I am. With the resistance, yeah. I am with the resistance.
He's with the resistance.
Rey.
Help me with this! Quick!
As with BB-8, there are parallel scenes that inform us about Finn and Rey's relationship.
What are you doing? Come on! I know how to run without you holding my hand! Stop taking my hand!
Are you okay?
Yeah. Follow me.
She is unwilling to be made into his sidekick, but once he shows real concern, they work together to escape.
Your last
That was
dead.
amazing.
Oh,
You set me up for it. That was pretty good.
They finally introduce themselves, and Finn is about to tell Rey the truth, except
Rey.
they get distracted and now they're out of sync.
No. No. The one I'm pointing to. No. No. I've got to get back to Jakku.
Back to Jakku! Why does everyone want to go back to Jakku? Got a family? Got a boyfriend? Cute boyfriend?
None of your business, that's why.
Specifically, he was dismissive of Jakku, and they are both keeping secrets about who they are from each other, which is why things don't go very well.
Get off! Get off!
And 2 fugitives.
On Takodana, Finn is the first to give up on their mission.
They'll slaughter us. We all need to run.
She's still choosing to help, even though...
But I have to get home. Already been away too long.
And so their secrets lead to him leaving.
Like all of them, I was taken from a family I'll never know.
And she's devastated.
Come with me.
Don't go.
I'll come back to this part in a moment, but let's jump to the next time she sees Finn.
You alright?
Rey is quite shocked that he came back, and when Chewie tells her
That it was your idea.
the two are reconciled at last. However, she's still keeping secrets.
How did you get away?
I can't explain it, and you wouldn't believe it.
Which is why this fight doesn't go so well. They are not in sync, even if she's willing to stand up for him like she did BB-8.
What?
So Rey helping the Resistance is assertive and refuses to become the sidekick to Finn, no matter who he is. She stands up for herself and what she can do, refusing to share her reasons to go back to Jakku with someone who might mock them. His coming to rescue her is very affecting and plays a part in her decision to accept the new adventure. She hopes to see him again, but now is clearly on a different kind of path, and it's left ambiguous to the audience if their respective journeys will coincide again.
We'll see each other again. I believe that.
They'll be back. One day.
Finally, let's talk about Rey the New Jedi. We first see evidence of this perhaps here. But I would actually say her first suggestion of Force powers is here. It is similar to how she hears this. And how she hears Kylo Ren before he's close by. The more obvious evidence of her abilities is here when she touches the lightsaber. We see references to Luke, but it is also noteworthy how, of all the people in the visions, she sees Kylo Ren twice, and both times he reacts to her where no one else does. Which is interesting, especially considering how we just came from a scene where he was begging for some kind of sign from his grandfather.
Show me, grandfather.
And that literally cuts right to Rey being the one called by his grandfather's lightsaber.
What was that?
Intriguing. Anyway, Maz talks her down and tells her,
"You already know the truth. They're never coming back."
And Rey cries, but she's not surprised or upset. She knew this already. So did we. So she's willing to accept this part of Maz's advice, but she rejects the responsibility of bringing someone else back.
There's someone who still could.
Maz tells her,
"The belonging you seek is not behind you. It is ahead."
And she runs right out into Kylo Ren's arms with this interesting musical cue.
This is the final boarding call for Action Air Flight 65, non-stop service to Tacoma, Washington.
It's my ex-boyfriend, Octavius Rex, aka Long, Dan, and Handsome.
Anyway, Rey is taken captive at this point in another set of parallel scenes. Let's compare them. They're both frozen. He reads their minds and decides to take them prisoner.
The old man gave it to you. Put him on board. You've seen it. We have what we need.
Except Poe gets dragged off by stormtroopers while Rey... Like, there are stormtroopers right there. Why is he doing this?
Ren, that your personal interests not interfere with orders from Leader Snoke.
By the grace of your training, I will not be seduced.
Well, for our benefit, of course. This interaction is important, and we already know that he's not some faceless bad guy. He's Han and Leia's son.
Where am I?
Jabba's palace.
Where am I?
You're my guest.
Who are you?
That happens when you're being hunted by a creature in a mask.
Someone who loves you.
So we should notice this change in behavior and expect things to go differently this time.
No one has been able to get out of you what you did with the map.
Tell me about the droid.
And they do. The interrogation room is much more brightly lit, and Kylo Ren is kneeling instead of standing imposingly. His response to an insult is quite different.
You might want to rethink your technique.
Creature in a mask.
Finally, our third player is unmasked, and Rey has this reaction. She's surprised, as likely are we. Now, she is first defined by him as
you, a scavenger.
Then he describes what he sees about her, foreshadowing the ending.
You imagine an ocean. I see it. I see the island.
And her relationship with Han Solo gives him pause. As with Finn, it's this reference to family that upsets Rey, and she tells him to get out.
And Han Solo, feel like he's the father you never had. He would have disappointed you.
Get out of my head.
Then they fight, and the sound design in this scene is just fantastic. She then shows us what she can do by identifying his greatest insecurity like he did hers.
You're so lonely. So afraid to leave.
You're afraid that you will never be as strong as Darth Vader.
Putting her on his level. And then he goes before Snoke and calls her
untrained but stronger than she knows.
And he gets increasingly concerned that she hasn't been caught since she's
just beginning to test her powers. The longer it takes to find her, the more dangerous she becomes.
This indicates to us that she is indeed a powerful Force user and will be a formidable enemy to the First Order, making her the hero of this trilogy. It also foreshadows how she'll likely be victorious against him when they next meet. First, though, we see her embody the light side in this scene, just to make clear which side she's on. Her devastation here makes sense when you recall
like he's the father you never had.
And that Rey's greatest desire is to have her parents return for her at last.
They'll be back. One day. I've got to get back to Jakku, but I have to get home. Already been away too long.
She cannot understand why Kylo Ren would refuse this.
Leave here with me. Come home. I miss you.
Which explains her anger and why she calls him
you're a monster.
And then finally, we the audience have figured out the mystery of Rey completely when she picks up the lightsaber. She's the new Jedi. Just listen to that Force theme. Kylo Ren's reaction confirms it. Just compare this to when Finn had the lightsaber.
That lightsaber, it belongs to me.
They fight, and he seems to be testing her, not really attacking her, and he offers to teach her.
I could show you the ways of the Force!
Probably against Snoke's directives.
Bring her to me.
And then we meet the real Rey. When she accesses the Force, she is unstoppable. She slices up his face and knocks him down, then is forcibly removed from continuing, so we are left with this unfinished interaction. Which is teasing their inevitable reunion after they are trained more.
It is time to complete his training.
In contrast to the ambiguous ending with Finn, it's pretty clear that the interactions between these two are going to be important for Rey's journey as she learns about the Force. So, overall, we first meet Rey as a scavenger, learning what she is capable of doing and her biggest insecurity. Then we see her on an adventure with Finn, where she continues to protect herself, while also showing her ability to succeed in new situations, especially with a friend at her side. When called upon to be a Jedi, she's at first afraid, but eventually accepts the role, first just to help her friend, but then she takes ownership of the calling, leaving us excited to find out where her journey will take her next.
May the Force be with you.
For our second section today, we are going to go through Rey's character arc. As with the previous episodes, I'm going to look at this in terms of a journey across the trilogy. Since I have not previously made a Rey episode for this movie, here's what I would say her journey is if we want to apply all of the steps to this film. If we look at her journey as a whole, she goes through the first 4 steps in The Force Awakens as she goes out into the wider world. As always, we are using Maureen Murdoch's heroine's journey. The first step for our heroine is being separated from the feminine. As with our other characters, what is Rey missing that she needs to have by the end of this trilogy? Well, hers is pretty obvious and specifically stated.
The belonging you seek is not behind you, it is ahead.
She needs a family again.
For my family. They'll be back. One day.
While the other ladies are getting things done, this movie makes the wonderful decision to give us some time alone with Rey before her adventure starts. We see what she fears, growing old in the desert alone, having to scavenge for the rest of her life, and we see that she is compassionate. She rescues BB-8 despite never having seen him before, and at perhaps danger to herself.
Norma!
The tour of her home is also illuminating. She's stuck in this longing for her family and refuses to move on from their absence. Obviously something that will need to be addressed.
I know all about waiting.
We may get a flashback in subsequent scenes, but we already know everything we need to about Rey. She is intelligent, physically capable, good at fixing broken things, and has a strong moral center. And unlike previous heroes of the series, what she longs for isn't adventure, it's someone to love her.
They're never coming back. But there's someone who still could.
The second step, as the heroine sets out into the wider world, is to gain masculine allies. BB-8 serves as a way to get her to leave the arrested state of development she's been in.
No!
Next, she runs into Finn. I really like how quickly their relationship develops, with her establishing her boundaries and being able to express her annoyance with him.
They saw you with me. You're marked.
Well, thanks for that. Stop taking my hat! Are you ever gonna fly back?
I'm working on it. Are the shields up?
Not so easy without a co-pilot.
Even if she is very lonely, she does not immediately trust a stranger, and that's very realistic.
Well, people seem to assume that it's more difficult working with droids than it is with humans, but I started with BB-8, so when it came to working with John, I was like, I don't know what to do with you. I don't know how to work with this.
Though she doesn't have a lot of control over this whole situation, it is what finally gets her to leave Jakku.
The garbage will do.
Then they are taken captive by Han and Chewie. Like her meeting with Finn, this starts off at odds before more impending danger gets them all on the same page. I especially enjoy Han's gruff approval of her.
I think I can handle myself.
I know you do. That's why I'm giving it to you.
Though it's not immediate. She's disappointed at his dismissal here, for example.
I bypassed the compressor.
So now she has some allies, but she is about to be separated from them.
And now it calls to you.
While Rey's road of trials could be said to begin basically as soon as she comes across BB-8. I think her real trials, especially in terms of the trilogy as a whole, start when she is called by the lightsaber. First, these visions of both the past and the future are frightening to her. She was enjoying the adventure so far, even if she continued to want to go home.
I gotta get back to Jakku, but I have to get home.
I have to get back to Jakku.
Finn leaving brings up old wounds and starts us hearing her child self screams, which called her here. She doesn't appreciate the reminder and certainly doesn't like what this bodes for her future if she takes on the role being offered to her.
There's someone who still could. The saber. Take it.
So she runs.
I'm never touching that thing again. I don't want any part of this.
Then she is captured, but the real trial comes from realizing she can push Kylo Ren out.
You're afraid.
And see what he's thinking.
That you will never be as strong as Darth Vader.
Now she doesn't understand what this means.
Don't be afraid. I feel it too.
But she tests her powers and manages to escape the cell.
You will remove these restraints and leave this cell with the door open.
And you'll drop your weapon?
And I'll drop my weapon.
And then creep around the base for who knows how long while seeing what she can do. As our new Force user of the trilogy, this exploration is essential for moving her along that path.
The longer it takes to find her, the more dangerous she becomes.
The illusion of success comes at the end of this film and includes several things for Rey. First, her allies have returned for her.
You alright?
Yeah.
Something she clearly did not expect.
Finn, what are you doing here?
We came back for you.
Though she does not share her new powers with them, which is intriguing.
How did you get away?
I can't explain it, and you wouldn't believe it.
Given that her initial reaction to awakening Force powers was to run away, I would guess that she simply would have told no one and continued to run from it. However, this reunion is an illusion, because then Han is killed and Finn is injured, forcing her to confront what she is being called to do. It takes Kylo Ren chasing her right to the edge of a cliff for her to accept this part of herself as something that exists and that she can use. There's that scavenger background coming out. As soon as she attacks, she quickly gains the upper hand because of course she would. Did you see the beginning? And finding the Force means she's willing to trust herself and no longer be afraid. She is successful in this fight and goes to the Resistance, who have also been successful in theirs. But both are illusions. Her success here gives her a role she doesn't understand and isn't even sure she wants. And the destruction of Starkiller Base only makes things more difficult for the Resistance going forward. So as happy and successful as this is, we see a glimpse of how this is only an illusion before the movie even ends. Rey may have found Luke Skywalker, but he does not look happy to see her. Alright, to wrap up this video, let's talk about how Rey subverts your expectations. I feel like I've already been through most of this though. The movie is set up to learn more about her, and we have a bit of a mislead on who will be the new Jedi, either Finn or even Kylo Ren, since he's a resident Skywalker. And then we end the movie understanding how awesome she is as our new lead character of the trilogy. Unlike our other leading ladies, Rey is explicitly the main character, so I don't need to argue about how important she is to people who may not have picked up on it, because of course everyone loved her and was excited to see more of her, right? Right? So we're done with this video?
No.
Okay, fine. I was really hoping to just celebrate what we got in each of these films, but I guess I had better address the brain worms.
What do they look like?
They look like that.
I would enjoy revisiting the experience of opening night in 2015. But I would not go back to early 2016 to hear about the reactions to this movie if you paid me. So I'm not going to revisit anything in detail. I'm just gonna briefly address the broad strokes.
Look how old you've become.
Something far worse has happened to you.
Now, as I indicated at the start of this, I frankly do not care and have never cared about what any dude bros had to say, since they rarely say more than this.
That's mine!
Those brainworms are far beyond my powers of persuasion, and it's not like they think a woman could ever be right about something.
Women always figure out the truth.
I'm looking at the eyes of a man who wants to run.
So, my girlies who have made it this far, I'm gonna be preaching to the choir here, but I hope you will enjoy my justified rage. I'm gonna limit myself to 3 dumb ideas that probably started with these guys, but spread and became kind of generally accepted.
There's shadows spreading across the galaxy.
And then we'll get back to Rey. First, is this movie a copy of A New Hope? Well, is Return of the Jedi? Is Home Alone a copy of Die Hard? Is The Hunger Games just Battle Royale? Or The Lion King just Hamlet? My answer is simply, who cares? There is an assumption that having similar plot elements is intrinsically bad, which is simply not true, especially in Star Wars, which everyone knows is based on a hero with 1,000 faces, a theory that explicitly suggests all hero stories have the same steps. So if your takeaway is that The Force Awakens is just a retread of A New Hope, then baby, you're in the wrong franchise. You're probably just a fake fan here for clout. So allow a real fan to offer the rebuttal that the point of The Force Awakens, as with A New Hope, is the character development. This circle boy blows up at the end to give us the resolution of these arcs. Luke is succeeding without his mentor. Han is finally coming through. Leia's mission from the beginning comes to fruition. And this circle boy blows up to give our characters a goal that drives them here, in a galaxy where this has happened already. We need something with the stakes to get everyone in the same place so we can culminate their arcs. Rey accepts the call. Finn is fighting back instead of running. Kylo Ren is doubting his allegiances. None of them are copies of the original heroes or villains, and they are actively grappling with the actions of the previous generation.
They'll be back. One day.
My men are exceptionally trained, programmed from birth.
Like all of them, I was taken from a family I'll never know.
I just never should have sent him away. That's when I lost him.
There's too much Vader in him.
And Han Solo, he would have disappointed you.
So it's definitely not just A New Hope reheated, but rather a reasonable continuation of this universe.
This was the Death Star. And this is Starkiller Base.
How do we blow it up? There's always a way to do that.
Han's right.
Anyway, the second thing is a refusal to accept what the movie is telling us about Rey. Specifically, that we already know everything we need to. This kind of ties into the next one, but I just want to say that anyone who insisted she was related to one of the characters who appear in the film concerns me.
Are you okay?
First, how heartless would they have to be to leave a child on Jakku?
Jakku? That junkyard?
Thank you, junkyard.
And if any of your parents greet you like this?
Where are the others? Where's the pilot?
I'm the pilot.
You?
Then I am so sorry for you. Second, Rey was clearly at least this old when they left. She would remember what they looked like. They would remember what she looked like. There is no indication that anyone is hiding that they recognize her, except, well, this guy.
What girl? The girl I've heard so much about. Don't be afraid. I feel it too.
Untrained but stronger than she knows.
It's just us now.
But she sees him before she met him, so the most logical conclusion is that it worked the other way around, not that anyone knew her already.
Finn, what's yours?
I'm Rey.
You got a name?
Rey.
Rey? May the Force be with you.
Finally, the Mary Sue thing. As with above, assuming that being a Mary Sue is a bad thing ignores basically all genre conventions and makes it pretty clear that your problem isn't with this kind of character, but with women specifically. As the Rewriting Ripley podcast investigated, folks only say Gary Stu as a cover for complaining about Mary Sue's too much. The math just says you're a misogynist, Jared. Maybe don't go around admitting it so loudly.
You ever notice how quickly some people make an impression? I'm a tool. I'm a tool. I'm a tool, an unbelievably annoying tool. Yeah.
Also, like, where do you get off complaining about Mary Sue's in a story written by George Lucas about a boy being the most special lad in the galaxy named Luke S?
Order! Order! Order!
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
But I do want to address that, in this film, only an idiot would think Rey is a Mary Sue. She has very good reason for being able to handle a lightsaber, and you can literally see her learning how to use it differently from her staff to using it more like her opponent. The other characters do not love her when they meet her, except for this inexplicable hug. Everyone is pretty antagonistic up to and including Luke at the end. This is just protagonist bias, which all stories have, and especially blockbuster movies. This about sums it up. Grown adults will get on the internet and say things like, why is this movie about the protagonist, the titular character? That villain was so problematic. Yeah, it was their job.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
Most of the rancid takes going around were apparently made by people who had never seen a movie before, pointing out things that this film just explicitly says, like, that girl has force powers despite coming from nowhere.
Scavenger. Resisted here.
Or, that villain doesn't live up to Darth Vader.
Strong as Darth Vader.
Yeah, babe, that's the text. Great analysis there, Sigmund.
There's still light in him, I know it.
But there's someone who still could.
To get back to what makes Rey iconic, the biggest reason that she is not a Mary Sue is that she's deeply flawed. She's in denial about who she is, both at the beginning when she's forcing herself to believe that her family will return, and later when she refuses to admit that she has force powers.
I'm never touching that thing again. I don't want any part of this.
She doesn't tell anyone about them and just wants to be like everyone else.
I can't explain it. And you wouldn't believe it.
Until circumstances force her to accept that she's extraordinary. And I gotta say, as I'm sure you all agree, as a woman that is very relatable. Luke Skywalker embodied a lot of things that men are concerned about, specifically about what it means to be a man and deciding what kind of man to be. And I'm saying that in this film, Rey gave that to us. She has dreams, but feels tied to one spot because of her family's expectations. She hides her feelings behind a positive attitude. She lashes out when things get too personal. She's compassionate and nurturing to robots, but unlike her predecessors, is not forced to be mothering to the male characters. She can handle herself both in terms of combat and in establishing boundaries with the people she meets. She's not a sidekick or a damsel. When taken captive, she gets herself out of that situation on her own.
You're afraid.
And her learning that she is the hero, that it doesn't matter what her past is or what her issues are, is pretty life-affirming to us girls. Like, she has imposter syndrome initially because she doesn't think someone like her could be special, but then she is. And even our villain is impressed.
Untrained but stronger than she knows.
It's sort of like how in Wonder Woman, this scene caused every lady I know to burst into tears because it's the only time we've seen that iconography used for someone like us. Yes, of course, Leia and Padme were special and important, but they were not shown visually in the same language that the men were. Well, Rey is, especially here, where she's given one of the most important signifiers in Western canon. And we were all like, so beautiful. I shouldn't have to argue why Rey is such an iconic and wonderful character in this film, especially to women and girls, because the movie actively spends the time to show you. And I cannot believe how much bullshit was produced twisting that idea to insist that she's powerful because of her relatives or that it's overdone to make her special. She was like no one I had ever seen, a woman with realistic flaws who can still be the hero. And I cannot stress how amazing it was to see her for the first time and realize she was gonna lead our new trilogy.
Girl knows her stuff. She's strong with the Force.
May the Force be with you.
Finally, I always like to ask, is our heroine more than a love interest? In this case, yeah, of course. She isn't even a love interest and does not ever take the role of one, even if Finn asks at this point. And unlike her predecessors, she is not here just to drive the plot forward. Instead, the plot exists so we can get to know her better.
Who's the girl?
And we do. She is sensitive about her past and lying to herself, while also being very talented with machines and able to hold her own in a fight. We find out she has the ability to use the Force and are rooting for her to master it. By the end, she's our new hero, and we are excited to see what she'll do next.
We'll see each other again.
Thank you for listening to me talk about our ray of sunshine. Next time, I'm fulfilling a long-awaited promise and talking about Elizabeth Swann in Dead Man's Chest. But we'll head back to this galaxy soon enough. Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, join my Patreon, buy me a coffee, all those things so you don't miss it. See you then.